Rise of the Tomb Raider is not only my favorite game featuring Lara Croft, but it was my favorite game of 2015. Here's my review of the latest iteration, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Lara Croft has been through several rebrands over the past few decades, but we've now reached the final chapter in her latest incarnation, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. The 2013 launch of Tomb Raider painted a picture of a young and inexperienced archaeologist faced with adversity on the Japanese island of Yamatai. Lara next traveled to Siberia for 2015's fantastic follow-up Rise of the Tomb Raider and transformed into a seasoned adventurer who wasn't afraid to defend herself. The previous titles have set the stage for a character arc that sees Lara become a hardened killer who isn't afraid to make the transition from the hunted to hunter in Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Shadow of the Tomb Raider picks up 2 months after the events of Rise of the Tomb Raider and follows our protagonist as she travels to Mexico and South America in search of the lost city of Paititi. Lara inadvertently triggers the Mayan apocalypse, and when she springs into action, she's faced with the weight of knowing that her mistake was at the expense of thousands of lives. The story is more concise and character-focused this time around, and it's clear that an attempt was made to make players care more about Lara's journey. While it mostly succeeds, the game tends to take itself a little too seriously at times, with emotional events often falling flat. It's almost as if the previous game, which often characterized Lara as emotionally distant, diluted any attempt at portraying compassion this time around. The main plot revolves around an ancient cult who rule over the hidden city and hope to expand their empire, and while the story is interesting, it doesn't exactly push the envelope. The generic and armed mercenary organization Trinity makes its predictable return, interfering with and thwarting Lara's attempts to save the planet from the disastrous fate she set in motion. There are a few sequences that interject some rich character development, including a playable flashback section that sheds light on the nature of Lara's inquisitiveness and her relationship with her parents. There are also some great interactions between Lara and her trusted companion Jonah that provide some interesting fodder to break up the combat, exploration, and puzzle-solving gameplay sections. Shadow's lush environments provide plenty to do aside from following the main storyline, including tracking down treasure with the aid of clues written on monoliths, discovering hidden tombs, hunting exotic jungle creatures, and solving the many mysteries within settlements. For the most part, these side missions are great fun, especially the hidden tombs, but the rewards seem a little bit pointless. Salvaged outfits for Lara offered meaningless bonuses, crafting materials are so plentiful that they're not an exciting reward, and I found that new skills and weapons were seldom used. It's disappointing that so much of this optional content and upgrade system were incorporated so poorly. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is one of the most polarizing games I've ever played when it comes to gameplay. There are moments where it's great, and moments where it can be painfully frustrating. The game's combat systems are a perfect example. The stealth mechanics are masterfully executed, with a wide variety of ways to approach each situation. However, once you're discovered, the gameplay turns into a complete mess that often led to me dying on purpose in order to reattempt the assault. The close quarters combat is easily the weakest part of the gameplay experience, and is a step back from what was implemented in the previous games. By contrast, Shadow of the Tomb Raider's exploration and platforming elements are well executed, and Lara has an assortment of abilities and equipment to aid her through every situation. That being said, there were several times that I wasn't exactly sure what to do next, and it wasn't because I couldn't figure it out, but rather the case of something not being clearly marked. I spent a half hour swimming around a pillar that I knew I had to dislodge before finally realizing that I wasn't in the proper position for a QuickTime event to initialize. Speaking of swimming, the underwater sections in the game are a welcome addition and make for some interesting exploration and puzzle elements. The suspense of swimming through an underwater cavern and managing Lara's oxygen levels while she avoids a school of flesh-eating piranhas is both fun and tense. However, when it comes to the game's puzzles, I was a little bit disappointed. There were several instances where the route to the tomb was actually more exciting than completing the puzzle within it. On the audio-visual side of things, Shadow of the Tomb Raider looks and sounds great, with some aspects standing out more than others. The game features several gorgeous locations that are beautifully rendered with some impressive lighting and particle effects. Environments are full of exotic plants and wildlife, creating an authentic atmosphere that fits the game's narrative. For the most part, the characters look great too, with the exception ironically being Lara Croft herself. There's just something about Lara's character model that, for lack of a better term, looks a little bit last gen. That being said, the superb voice acting and character animations made for times where I felt like I was watching a film instead of playing a video game. Despite its faults, Shadow of the Tomb Raider is still one of the best games in the series to date. Eidos Montreal has done a fine job in crafting the final chapter of this Lara Croft saga. Longtime fans of the series will appreciate the exploration through exotic location and welcome the return return of underwater sequences. While the puzzles are fun, I never felt that sense of satisfaction upon completing a cleverly designed and challenging brain teaser. The story doesn't take many chances, but I enjoyed the historical events that were intertwined with the main story, and the cult leader villain serves as an adequate protagonist. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is a great game that will unfortunately be overshadowed by its predecessor. Still, just because Rise of the Tomb Raider is a far superior experience, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't seek out this worthy sequel. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on Shadow of the Tomb Raider or the Tomb Raider series in general. Thank you, as always, for watching, and till the next episode.